So I try to be up to date on all the technology. You know, I use the DJI Osmo. This is the DJI Mic 2. This is the top of the line Nikon mirrorless camera, the Z9. I try to be up to date and current on all the technology, but I never understand why I seem to get these problems and no one else does, because whenever I'm complaining about the technology to anyone else, everyone else is fine with it. They have no complaints. But for me, there's all sorts of complaints. So here's one, for example. So this lens has a control ring, has your zoom, which is cool, and it has a focus ring. That makes sense. And then it has a control ring that I don't need, that I never asked for. Currently, this control ring is controlling the aperture. I'm not sure if you can see that, but the aperture changes as I turn the ring. I don't want it to do that. So I go into controls, custom controls, come down here, and you'll note I have that turned off. The control lens control ring, none. It's set to none. However, it still controls the aperture, which is really annoying, because if I'm filming a video clip, which is where I've been encountering the problem, if I accidentally turn this ring and it gets the aperture here to, let's say, 6.3, now when I use my normal aperture control, which is this dial here that I've been using since the days of the F5 way back 20 years ago, doesn't do anything. This was driving me crazy because I couldn't figure out what the problem is. Only the control ring will put it back to where I want it, even though the control ring is set to have no function. So what I did was I downloaded the firmware for the lens, and it's on this card. I'm going to try to update the firmware, and hopefully that'll solve the problem. But I don't want to update the firmware on a lens. Like, I just don't. I didn't ask for this control ring. I don't need it. I want to just turn it off and have it stay off. It's so frustrating to me. And you guys have heard me say this before if you've ever watched any video of mine. This is one of the reasons I love Leica. It's just not like that. Like, since it's a physical control, once you put it on, say, 2.8, it stays there. 100 years from now, it's going to be on 2.8. It's not like you turn it on Tuesday and all of a sudden it's different. That problem with the control ring, that was not an issue for me a month ago, and it's been an issue for me for quite a while now, the last month, and I just figured it out that that's why I was getting this aperture problem that I couldn't change by turning this dial. But it's so annoying. Then we go on to like these DJI mics, right? They're supposed to have internal recording, which is one of the main reasons you buy these units. This one, you'll note the red light, it's on record. This one will not record. If I push the button, flashes for a second, but it won't record. I mean, what kind of sense does that make? And if you go into the menu here, you still can't make this record. Now, I happen to have two of these units. Here's another one. And funny enough, it has the same problem. This one will record. This one's on recording, and this one is not, and I cannot make it record even when I go into the menu. I might actually sell this unit because I've had a lot of issues with this unit not connecting. A lot of times you see both receivers, no, I'm sorry, both transmitters are connected to this receiver, but many times it will not connect, and it's super frustrating. And it's just funny to me that, like, when I go on YouTube or something, or I'm talking to people who have some of these products, like the Osmo or this or the Z9, everyone's just like, oh, this is great, it's great, I love it. And then for me, I just seem to get problem after problem, and I don't know why. Now I'm going to try to update the firmware on the lens, which is something we didn't do in the film days. We didn't do it in the SLR or DSLR days, and now in the mirrorless days, for some reason, we're updating firmware. Like, that's not a step forward. That's a step backwards when we do things like that. And then here it just says done. I mean, now I have to go on the internet, I guess, and try to figure out, the firmware is on that card, why that doesn't seem to give me any kind of option to update the firmware. Like, I just want to use my camera to take pictures. I don't want to go on the internet and start searching a bunch of YouTube videos about how to update the firmware on the lens. That didn't work, so I looked at the instructions again, and I think maybe once I created this disk image, maybe I was supposed to take this file and put that file into the card. So first we downloaded a file, then we extracted a disk image, then I double-click the disk image and get this folder, and then I'm going to now try to put this folder on the card. and see if that does anything to update the firmware. This is ridiculous. And nothing. Nothing that looks like anything's being updated. No instructions. Nothing. And we check the lens, and still doing the same thing. Aperture is changing as I turn this control ring. But when I go to controls here, it says here that the lens ring is off. It says it right there. Lens control ring, none. Now, in order to download the firmware, so you download this thing here. You download a file called FML22470F285-VD120M.DMG. Like, why you can't just call this 24 to 70 firmware 2025. But after you download it, you don't just drag it onto the card. You have to double click it to create this, which is called the disk image. And once you create that, supposedly, then you can put that into the camera and update the lens firmware in the hopes of making the lens function like every other lens I've ever owned. So here we go. We're putting the card in, and we're going to go to firmware and see if this helps. Let's see, firmware version. And again, nothing that suggests how to install this firmware, even though the disk image is right there on the file. So now I went back, put the card back in the camera again, and remember I dragged this folder here? So now I'm going to open what's inside the folder, and I'm going to try to put that on the card and see if that works. So I'm going to erase all this other garbage. And now we're going to put this inside and see if this does anything. So far I downloaded a file, double-clicked it to create a disk image. Then I went inside the disk image and found a folder, and then I'm putting that on the card. This is like nesting into nesting into nesting. Absolutely absurd. Let's see if this works now. It's just ridiculous to have to do this. Okay, let's see. Firmware. Okay, now that's what I had to do to get to that file. Why can't they just let you download that file to begin with? Like when I download, why don't they just let me download the file I need? Why do I have to open like 4 different versions of the file in order to make this thing work? And let's see if that does anything. Okay, turning the camera on, and we turn the ring, and it's still changing the aperture. Look at this after all that time, and I'm going to double check what it's set to. We go to controls, we go to shooting, we go down to the bottom, and it's set to none. Okay, so still isn't working properly. See, I can set it to aperture. I'm setting it to none. Right now it's set to none. Double check that one last time. Set to none, but when I turn the ring, the aperture changes.